My guest today is Greg Hickman. Greg started out working in marketing in the corporate world. Tired of restrictions, he started his own companies that focused on mobile marketing. In 2015, Greg founded System.ly. His vision was to help businesses scale using marketing, automation, systems, people, and processes. Since then, Greg has helped countless business owners improve processes and scale their business. Thanks for being on the show today, Greg.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Wicked. So I know you're very busy, and I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule
Well,
to
thank
be on
you.
the show. So the first question I always ask guests are, what made you become who you are, and maybe explain about your journey and what do people know you by today?
Yeah. I don't have one of those entrepreneurial stories where like I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur from growing up or started selling cards or flowers or whatever early on. Uh, Growing up, I didn't really know what the hell I wanted to do. At one point, I had a vision of starting a bike shop just because I fell in love with the owners of my local bike shop and I was a big cyclist.
Okay.
But that was kind of the most entrepreneurial thought that I had had before college. In college, I focused in marketing, and I just kind of once I got to college and got into like business management was my major because we didn't focus on marketing, but I was interested in marketing. I just envisioned like working for like a big advertising agency, and that's what I had always wanted. Uh, and so out of college, I basically just started working in large agencies, actually large and small, representing fairly large brands and professional sports teams. Jumped around to a couple small boutique shops. Once I kind of realized I didn't want to be just a number in this large machine, and had a chance to work in a couple startups. But really got into the mobile space early on, like pre-iPhone, doing a lot of text message marketing. And once the iPhone came out and we saw apps, that was like I was committed to mobile for the foreseeable future. And over the better part of a decade, my continued agency experience, my corporate side, client side work was all in and around the mobile space. During that time, though, is when I kind of really started seeing what was possible from entrepreneurship, when I started uncovering people like Pat Flynn, and at the time, a podcast called Internet Business Mastery. So I was all about like moving up the ladder in like an agency or even becoming like head of marketing for some brand at some point, really until I got introduced to this notion of like online entrepreneurship, which was around 2012-ish is when I kind of uncovered that. And then that just led me into starting stuff on the side, failing miserably, and then eventually launching my own business.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about some of those early entrepreneurial companies that you started. What happened? Why did it fail? And what do you believe made it not successful? Like, what could you
Yeah,
have done
so
differently?
absolutely. So, I fell in love with mobile. I didn't really know how to monetize it. So I came across, the bloggers and the online influencers, and I didn't see really anyone talking about mobile. So I was like, maybe I'll be like the mobile guy. And so I started blogging. I started a podcast on mobile, interviewing people that were like the head of mobile for like large brands that I saw doing cool stuff, opened tons of doors, but I did all of that without really knowing like what's the business model,
Yeah.
because I had a job at the time. So this was all like for fun on the side.
Side hustles.
I
Yeah.
launched, I did some like one-on-one coaching with smaller businesses. In that time, we also tried building a course on mobile marketing, which was we made money. I could never grow it beyond like 10K a month. And we launched a software, like a text message marketing software platform for small independent retail companies. That was all right. We never really got it off the ground. There was just way too much competition and didn't really know what I was doing completely. And sort of with that whole mobile, it like evolved into kind of like a managed service of like text message marketing for independent retail. So we put together the strategy. We coordinated with like the client and sent out campaigns and tried to drive people into physical stores. And again, I really had a tough time getting that over, $10,000 to $15,000 a month. And at that point is kind of when I like reached my limit. And I just realized that the kind of my aha moment was having come from all these big brands where like they were investing in innovation, which was mobile at the time. uh you know, they were interested in it. Smaller businesses looked up to those businesses and were like, one day I'll do that. And so I started serving them, but they were barely using email. You know, they like, I mean, they were so archaic that like they didn't even know they had a problem, and they didn't would never think that mobile was going to be a part of the solution. And so for me, I was just at that point so in love with mobile as a solution and a marketing vehicle that like I was just blinded to the fact that they didn't even know what their problem was. And my biggest lesson and kind of why I started switching was like I fell in love with the solution, not the problem that they had. And I didn't really care about retail companies. So I was serving a market that I really didn't care to serve, that didn't think they had a problem. And so I had to educate them on this thing that I was truly passionate about. And it just, I needed to be in love with the problem that they had in order for me to best serve them. And it was not that case. And so that's when I kind of realized something needed to change, because I didn't want to go back to corporate. But at the time, I had been using Infusionsoft, because a lot of the online entrepreneurs that I knew were using it. And that's when I started going out and saying, hey, like, do you need help with Infusionsoft? And that's kind of what got me into marketing automation. And they all had problems with Infusionsoft, and they all had pain, and they wanted help. And so it was like super easy to sell. I got to work with the new people that I really wanted to serve and like help them with the problems they had around automation. And so it really just all of those things, like falling in love with the person who I was serving, falling in love with the problem that they had, and being able to like be interested enough to dig deep into the solution and evolve that over the last, you know, handful of years is really what got me to today.
That's
So
amazing.
falling in love with the problem that my ideal client has been just driving me since.
That's amazing. So currently, I know you have your own company, System.ly. Um, can you tell the audience exactly what you do and who
Yeah.
are the type of clients that you kind of serve?
Yeah. So I'll say what we are now, and then I'll kind of quickly do a how we got here, because we
Okay,
didn't
sure,
start this way.
sure.
So today we are a training and a coaching company,
Okay,
uh, mentorship company for digital agency owners. And we teach them how to really add on more leveraged revenue streams like consulting, like coaching and training that complement their agency services, so that they don't have to keep doing more done for you labor. And in many times they want to escape the whole done for you game anyway. So first we help them kind of optimize their service offering, and then we help them install systems to automate their sales, marketing, and fulfillment, and really start to give them the freedom that they had wanted by starting a business and continue to grow without necessarily adding more hours or like tripling their headcount. So yeah, that's pretty much what we've been doing. We have a couple different programs that we work with agency owners through, kind of systematically helping them kind of install some of these systems and processes so that they're able to be more profitable and enjoy more of their life.
that's amazing.
But we started off, like I said, as building out automation and marketing and sales funnels for online entrepreneurs that were selling courses and all that stuff. So that's where we got really good at, um, you know, all of the systems stuff, serving people that we cared about. But the same story for us is, you know, we capped out at around like 65K a month. And when I realized that the way to hit the goals that I wanted to hit were revolved around, all right, for every 10 new clients, I need a new hire. I just quickly flashed back to all of my agency days, and I was like, that's not what I want. That's not the model that I want to grow. And that's when we started changing things and kind of pivoted into training and coaching around the things we had been doing previously.
That's amazing. I mean, that's the whole purpose of being an entrepreneur, right? Knowing exactly where you want to be and be able to pivot, right? Knowing, you know, when you're hitting a ceiling or you're frustrated, you kind of know where you really have to focus and put more efforts into, right?
Yeah.
And once you figure out your target ideal kind of tribe or niche, you then can really tone down on the messaging and really do the A/B testing exactly to those type of audience members, because you know what kind of persona they have, who is their ideal customers, and who, you know, the entire message, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
audience. So sounds like you're having a lot more fun now.
Way more fun. Way
That's
more
amazing.
fun.
That's amazing. So growing up, I know you talked about you didn't really think about being a business owner. Were there people that inspired you to kind of do this on your own? Were there people that kind of pushed you, or was this more like inside you, like you wanted to escape the corporate and you had side hustles and you enjoyed it so much that you kind of just wanted to do your own thing?
Yeah, I think it was a mix. I mean, early days, like I said, I kind of started, online bloggers and stuff like that. Pat Flynn was one of them, Amy Porterfield,
Yeah.
um, uh, the guys over at Internet Business Mastery, which doesn't exist anymore, the podcast, um, Jason Van Orden and Jeremy Franzen, like those two guys, like were also really inspiring to see that, like, hey, like these guys are all like designing the business around how they want to live their life.
Yeah.
So from you can do this, that was like, those were the inspirations. But as I started, so that was like probably the driver, I'd say. And as I started following those sorts of people, I kept kind of having my own ideas. And even when I would try to implement certain ideas inside of the organizations that I had been in full time at that point, it just felt like I was always having to fulfill on someone else's vision. And I couldn't necessarily always bring my ideas to to fruition. And that just got really frustrating. And those two kind of combined, like not being able to execute on the things that I felt were going to make a difference, and then having to do something else because someone else told me to, and seeing other people kind of make their own path, just it kind of built up over time. And I just realized that that wasn't going to be my path to
Yeah.
keep working in corporate.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, this is the whole thing about like when you kind of know when to start
Yeah.
or not to start, and it's all timing and it's all based on each individual have their own calling, right?
Right.
And you kind of know when. So that's amazing to hear.
Yeah.
In terms of challenges then or mistakes, right? um, how did you move on? Like, how did you figure out like to kind of stop wasting your time and move on, or keep plugging away to kind of see if
Yeah.
this is going to be a success? Because as an entrepreneur, you
Yeah.
know as much as I do, like
Yeah.
your mindset is I gotta win, I gotta figure this out, right?
Yeah. So the most relevant story around this was, when I had left my last full-time job, which was, I went full-time in 2014. And that was still in the mobile space. And I actually started a podcast with a friend of mine called Zero to Scale, which we had about 101 episodes before we ended the show. And it was basically chronicling our journey to getting our businesses to 20K a month. And then we both hit 20K a month, and we raised the goal. But in the beginning of that podcast, I was doing the mobile thing that I was telling you about. And around episode 50, I had kind of been just running up against that wall. And my co-host said, well, let's just like throw some ideas off the wall here. Like, if you couldn't do this mobile thing anymore and you had to do something else, what would you do? And I said, you know what? Well, I've been really falling in love with Infusionsoft and automation. I'd probably do something around that. And he's like, all right, cool. Why don't you see if you can go get a couple clients in the next 30 days. And if you get those clients, that gives you permission to think more about what this thing could look like. Because as a systems minded person, I would have sat there and thought through, like, what's the business model? What's all of these things? What's it going to look like 10 years from now? And he knew that. So he's like, the only thing you could do is go get clients to support them with Infusionsoft. And he's like, how many do you think you can get in the next 30 days that would excite you enough that you'd want to continue thinking about this? I was like, I don't know, if I can get 3 clients in the next 30 days, I'd be convinced enough to explore more. Well, in 6 days, we had 7 clients. The pain was very real. One call closes versus 6 month sales cycles. And I was like, wow, like in 30 days, I'm making more than I'm making that I've been spending the last, however many years on. And that was when like kind of the light bulb clicked. And the hardest part of that whole thing, which I spent another probably 3 or 4 months just like trying to figure out what I'm going to do with this. Like, am I going to actually pursue this, or am I going to stay with the mobile thing? Because and I spent the better part of a decade like becoming this mobile person, like content. I was speaking, like I wanted to be like the mobile influencer. And the biggest thing was, all right, like, am I willing to walk away from like this identity that I've created, even though the business is not supporting where I want to go? Or do I care more about having a business that will pay me and I can grow? And finally, I realized that the business that can pay me and grow was way more exciting than just people thinking I was this, mobile guy. And so that's when I kind of just said, all right, I'm phasing out all the mobile clients. I'm giving them 3 to 6 months, depending upon how long I had been with them. And I went into the next year all in on what is now Systemly.
That's amazing.
And so, that's kind of how it started. But I think, a mistake was marinating too long on making that. Like, I was always going to make the decision. All the evidence was clear to just decide and like be on with it. So I think I lost about a half a year, just, noodling on that. Obviously the trying to solve something that only I cared about the solution, not necessarily the problem of the person I was helping. That was a big kind of directional shift for me.
I think the big thing from that is, being aware of, instead of chasing that authoritative figure that you were thinking everyone wanted to hear and, build upon that, which is not supporting your lifestyle. And
right.
if you have a family and you have other obligations, like if it's not paying your rent and mortgage and being able to help you travel and do things that you love, like what comes first, right?
Totally.
And then that 6 months or even that 10 years, I mean, it took you a while to get there, but at least you figured it out and you didn't give up, right? Because if you stuck with what you were doing and try to continue grinding it out, just paying your bills or, just really just living that life, right? Where would you be, right? Like if you think about it, but you were able to take that risk because of your coach or whoever that person was, to really open the door up to the opportunity and potential, right? Of
absolutely
taking that step or taking that risk and seeing what is out there, right? Totally. But I love that because, I look at myself and I'm like, I could have continued doing sales because at Yellow Pages, I was there for 5 years and, I was President's Gold Circle. And so I built myself up as a really good salesperson. I could have gone anywhere making, 6 figures just doing that, right?
Yeah.
But my challenge was I happy getting people to not be happy with their product, right? Like I was just frustrated that people were just not happy and content, right? So I had to come up with a solution that wasn't available. And so me taking that risk, it was like so much more rewarding, even though the first couple of years were a lot of headaches and challenges. It's just after you get over those couple of years of humps and, turbulations and challenges, figuring out what the heck am I doing and why am I doing this? It's so rewarding at the end, right, of that tunnel. So now you're in such a great space because you know exactly what you want. And it sounds like you're having a lot more fun because not only are you profiting more, you can actually do things more with your time.
Absolutely.
Right? It frees up time when you have income. When you don't have income, you're like just working in your business all the time.
Very true.
Right? No, it's great because for me, I love uncovering like what is going on with business owners, how they get there, entrepreneurs, because there's always challenges, right?
There's always challenges, yeah.
In terms of like mentors and coaches, do you currently still have any of those, or did they kind of help you transition? Or
I've had a bunch of different coaches and mentors throughout the years, both paid and not paid. I currently am not paying someone. I just kind of ended a relationship with a previous coach, in the hunt for kind of the next one. That's something I want to look back into in 2020. I love having a coach and someone to bounce ideas off of. So yeah, I mean, but from a mentorship perspective, there's a handful of peers of mine that are, I look up to and seek mentorship and advice from in all different areas. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I mean, I'm
amazing.
always looking for
That's amazing.
for that.
I think surrounding yourself with like just good people that aren't in it for a different purpose, right? Like
Right.
they are in it to really want to help you see you grow and succeed, or help with your family life balance, lifestyle. Like that's why, I'm very fortunate. I think I'm lucky because I am very like just outgoing. So I talk to a lot of people and I just reach out and ask questions. So I'm always curious, right?
Yeah.
As to how they became so successful. You're living in this huge home. How did you get there, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. So can
Yeah.
you like backtrack me? What did you do 20 years ago to get to where you are?
Yeah.
So just asking and being curious. And yeah, some people may say, get out of my face, don't want to talk to you, but others may want to like just open up, right? And then
Yeah.
you build a relationship that way. So I never really had like a coach per se, but I had a lot of colleagues and a lot of just
Yeah.
people I admired, and I would just ask, right?
Yeah. I
And
ask
I
a ton
would,
of questions.
oh yeah, and that's a big thing. Like it's okay for them to not even be interested in my question, right? Like they can slam
Yeah.
the phone on me. I don't really care. At least I made an effort because I'm in sales, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't phase me when people like say
Yeah. You have thicker skin than most people.
that. So that's awesome. So I know over the years, technology has changed, and obviously in your business, the funnels and systems. When did you discover, like, I know Infusionsoft you mentioned, and
Yeah.
there's a ton of other platforms like HubSpot, Kajabi, there's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
ton of
Active campaign. Yeah. There's a bunch.
active campaigns. There's so many of them out there. Like, how did you get into that whole marketing automation? Is there like a time that you kind of started really investigating versus kind of doing it yourself?
Yeah, well, when I started following a lot of the bloggers and online course creators and stuff, the Pat Flynn's, the Amy Porterfields,
Yeah.
a lot of them were using Infusionsoft at the time.
Yep.
And I mean, I distinctly remember a conversation with Amy where I was like thinking about upgrading. I knew I was kind of like too early. And she said, I wish I had moved over to it way earlier than I did. She's like, I do it now and keep building the infrastructure on top of it. And so I'd started using it, found value in how it was being utilized in my business, even though we weren't like, that was at the time the mobile business, systemizing my onboarding and all that stuff. But once I started serving the other entrepreneurs that were using it, it just brought me into the back end and back office of their business, where I got exposed to like, wow, like the automation tool really in many ways for these styles of businesses, online coaching courses, et cetera, like it's the brains, like it is the brains of the operation. And,
Hmm.
some of them have CRMs involved, and, other guys, other platforms like connecting to Kajabi and all that stuff. So the serving of the automation was something like the idea of how automation worked fascinated me. But when I started serving those people, it just brought me behind the scenes of their business, so I could see how all these guys and gals were like running their business, building their teams, which exposed me to other tools. And I'm a tech dork
That's
at the end of
amazing.
it. I thankfully have a team that is also really talented around that, so they kind of shield me from all of the shiny objects, which I still sometimes get into. But yeah, I mean, that's really how I got involved in it.
That's amazing. I mean, that's why, like I've always been a salesperson. Like I love that face-to-face interacting and that whole skill set of meeting real people.
Yeah.
So this marketing automation is so new to me that for me, I'm very intrigued by how the behavior of people can be influenced by, what they see and then interact somehow, right? But
Yeah.
which is very, very, you know, for me, I've never really understood how it works because I'm more of a face-to-face kind of person, but
Yeah.
it's the only way to scale, I believe.
Well, yeah. And I think the interesting thing that you're kind of, I think, saying without saying that I think is a big misconception, or at least a misutilization
Yeah.
of the tools is, I think a lot of people, when they hear like marketing automation or automation, whatnot, it instantaneously people feel like, oh, well, that's just going to be so transactional. And like no humans, all robots.
Yeah.
And like, I believe, and we've seen, cause this is how we leverage automation, is in many ways, like, it doesn't mean everything is fully automated. I don't think there's ever going to be like fully automated business.
Yeah.
But you can use automation to make your humans more efficient
Yeah.
and save them time
Yeah.
and increase their own capacity and bandwidth. And, you know, there's tons of stuff happening behind the scenes that automation and the systems are doing for you. But then it's like, hey, salesperson, like here's someone that you should probably reach out to based on the things that they've done. And then that becomes a human touch point, you know, where there's like, they can look and see, oh, here's where they've been, here's what they've done. And then that human interaction can be super, you know, high touch, personalized. And, you know, that was all happening behind the scenes. It was like bringing this opportunity to the salesperson, like on a silver platter. And you can do that all throughout your business, even in fulfillment, where, you know, people are, you know, constantly working away on stuff. Like the systems can be working and be making the human power people just more efficient. And so that's really how we look to help people utilize automation as well, as just efficiencies, streamlining stuff, making other people's roles easier. You know, by the time someone gets on the phone with, you know, sales reps following our systems, like most of the selling has been done, and it's more about like, is this a good fit for both of us? And do we want to work together? You know, and like, that's a kind of how I
That's
envision
amazing.
getting the most from it.
And
Yeah.
off topic, I'm gonna be reaching out to you afterwards because
Yeah.
you kind of already sold me. Because
Yeah.
end of the day, we are always looking for our ideal kind of tribe, right? Our
Totally.
audience. And if you're able to push people along by everything that you've mentioned and really just hand that over to that sales rep where all they have to focus on is closing the deal as opposed to prospecting. I mean, it saves them time. It's way more productive, and you're able to scale your business at a much faster rate, right?
Totally.
So yeah, definitely, I'm definitely gonna reach out to you.
Totally. Yeah.
So
Please
in
do.
terms of like another thing, in terms of when you started your business, did you ever like go into like networking events, or did you go on to forums to kind of figure out where you want to position your business or how to get clients?
Um, I wouldn't say like traditional forums, but like, you know, Facebook groups for sure. You know, I'd go to conferences a bunch early on. I don't go to as many anymore. Um, and I never was huge into like the local networking scene.
Yeah,
I kind of, for the most part, felt like it's a waste of time,
yeah,
uh, which I, in many ways, still believe. But if you put yourself in the right position at the right events, that you know the right people are going to be there, I think they could be extremely useful if you make them useful. I mean, like when I go to conferences, uh, even to this day, my like measure of success is before I get there, I identify the one or two people that I want to get closer with. And my relationship needs to be deeper with that one or two person. Like, I'm not trying to meet everybody. I'm not collecting a pile of business cards. It's like, am I closer with this person? And do I feel comfortable that I could probably text them a question? Like, that's like what I aim for when I go to any event, is like, who's that one person? If I can't identify who that one person is, it's usually a sign that I don't need to go to the event.
that's amazing. I mean, that's exactly what I tell people too,
Yeah.
because all you have to do is focus on one or two people that you really want to get to know, right?
Yeah.
And instead of being solicited by a lot of people, I don't even bring business cards, right? And
Yeah.
I
I don't even
really
have
just,
business cards.
if I want to talk to someone, I'm going to go out there, reach out to them and introduce myself, and then figure out if there's anything I can help them with, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to give more than you take, right?
Totally.
And once you have that relationship kind of started, then you can kind of keep that going, on LinkedIn or whatever, on a text message or call them.
Yeah.
Like that's the big thing. It's all about relationships, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the more you're out there doing what you want to do, and that's the other thing. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, like you're the best, you should be the best salesperson out there. So you should be
Yeah,
very
for your
comfortable.
business for sure.
You should be very comfortable at least letting people know what you do, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you're not good at sales, you better go start learning sales. And
That's for sure. Yeah.
and it's not meant for everyone, right? Sales is tough.
Yeah.
So a couple of last questions I want to ask you. I know you're running out of time. So what
Yeah.
what drove you? Like, is there anything that kind of motivates you today? Like, what is your passion for what you do and purpose and what excites you today as opposed to when you first started?
Uh, I'm just a huge fan of the process. You know, obviously there's tons of ups and downs. I believe that like building a business, at least if you want to build a successful one, um, it's an infinite game. It never ends. And like you just need to understand that that's a part of it. And so like how do you want to play the game is really the question that like I always ask myself. We talk to clients where you know they're like, oh man, I can't wait until I get X dollars a month in revenue, like everything's going to be better. And it's like, no, it's not. Like you're going to have
Right.
bigger problems, different problems, more challenging problems. The risks are going to be higher. You like if you make a mistake, it's going to cost you more almost always. And it's like this guy Alex Hormozy, who has a great podcast that I listen to. He kind of did an episode on like building a business is a lot like climbing a mountain. Being in Denver, I'm attuned to being at a higher altitude. But like if you climb up a mountain and you go to 10,000 feet, the air is thinner up there and it's harder to breathe. And building a business is like as you get to the next level, like it gets harder to breathe because there's more complexity. There's more things happening. The stakes are higher, and you kind of like need to build your lungs up to be at that level. And like you have to up level everything you do to be able to maintain at that altitude, at that level of the game that you're playing. You don't have to go higher. You could choose to come back down, and people train at altitude and then come down and they dominate the competition, like because it's easier down there. Like once you've been up here and you keep operating, like if you do choose to be at a lower level, things will probably operate a bit more smoothly because you've seen and experienced and operated at that higher level. So one, I mean, I really just like continually look at my progress to date and continually realigning myself with where I want to go, and constantly just trying to make sure I'm enjoying the process along the way. The whole entrepreneurial thing has been hands down the biggest class in personal development I've ever experienced. I've become a better person, way more self-aware. I feel like I'm extremely self-aware, which is like a skill set that I try to impose on our clients to like figure out themselves. So yeah, that's a piece of it, is just like I just love the process, and I like constantly want to grow. It's like grow or die is basically, if you're not moving anywhere, if you're stagnant, then like
What are you doing?
what are you doing? So that's a piece of it. Like from a purpose. So I think a lot of people, at least in the entrepreneurial space, they'll say like, what's your why?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, will be like, oh, because of my family, like I do this for my family. Honestly, I think that's sort of a cop out. That's like a byproduct of your business. Like I don't know any entrepreneur that started their business because of their family. Like they started it because they got laid off from a job and they needed to make money, or they just wanted to start a business because they had a bigger vision. Like the family is like something that is like I think drives us, but I don't think it is our purpose. Like for our business and like why I'm in business, like my purpose is like I want to essentially help every struggling and like unsatisfied agency owner, service provider, like provide abundantly for their life so that they're in their life so that they can do whatever they want and like have a business that fulfills them, but like without sacrificing their family or the things that matter the most. And like, cause I see how like when I install a system in my own business and it frees me up and I get to pick up my son from school early, like how that makes me feel, like that's nice. But like my business has allowed me to do that. And then when I see our client say, I was able to take a week-long vacation, not bring my computer, and like we made money, like the feeling that I get is like, that's like, I want more of that feeling. And that's why my business is in business. Like, that's why, like the result of what we're trying to do is just
Well,
constantly help those people and as many of them as possible. And
yeah,
as a byproduct, I get to provide amazingly for my family as well. But
that's
yeah,
amazing.
that's what drives me is like the feeling that I get from helping those people feel the feeling that I get when I do it for myself.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying because it's very similar to as an SEO agency.
Yeah.
Like whenever you do good work and you start getting clients to get a lot of leads and they're converting, they generate more revenue. Hopefully they're doing more with that revenue, which is good,
Yeah,
right? Which is
absolutely.
not just for themselves, but for their people, their tribe, their clients, their staff, their whatever. Like they're providing better service. Like stuff that actually resonates with me more is when they tell me like I was able to sponsor or community like give back to other causes or things that they really wanted to
Absolutely.
do, right? So
Yeah.
that's the stuff I love to do as well. Like when
Yeah.
I get to a point where I'm like every year I do this backpack program, I give back, right? And
Yeah.
I help new immigrants that just don't have the stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why you're in business. You want to impact a bigger group. And maybe when you're starting off you can't do that, but you're
Mm.
slowly starting to think about doing things like that, right? Frees up a little bit more of your time so you can
Yeah.
volunteer more, mentor more,
Yeah.
help other people, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and you see it like, I mean, on my street, we moved here like about a year ago. There's literally entrepreneurs on almost both sides of me. And, last night, like walking our kid out, we're recording this the day after Halloween, walking out and like everyone's out there with their kids, like being super present, having a good time. And the one next door to me, they were coming back from a vacation and they were 2 days delayed because in mid flight from Hawaii back to Denver, his daughter, they needed to emergency land the plane because she needed to have emergency or appendix removed. And like, so they were like 3 days later getting back to Denver than they were anticipating, but like his business runs smoothly. So like nothing, like it wasn't like, oh my God, my business is going to blow up. Like I can genuinely be present and take care of my daughter in this emergency and not worry about what's going on. And I can't say that all business owners obviously operate that way,
Yeah,
but like he's shown me, like ran into me last night. He's like, dude, you got to hear this story.
yeah,
And it's like, I'm like, oh man, but he has team, he's got process in place. And,
exactly.
you know, I just think of how I probably would have been feeling like super guilty, like if that were me, and I didn't have that like stability in the business. I don't know, just like little stories like that. I'm like, man, like those little curveballs come your way, and when you have things running a certain way, like your whole life won't come crumbling down. That you can focus on the things that matter most, which obviously in that moment was his daughter.
Yeah,
Uh, and
definitely.
she's fine, by the way. She's great.
Amazing.
We saw her last night. She was dressed up as a princess, and she was rocking it. So, yeah, it's just like little things like that. It's like
Yeah,
you got
I
to take
totally
care of
get it. Like,
those operations.
but then you're able to work on your business as opposed to in your business. And a lot of people are
Yeah,
in the business for way too long, not knowing when to step out and really focus on how to really build it without you being actively very involved in the business, right?
right.
So that's the entire journey that I kind of overcame as well. But a lot of business owners start off like that, right? And
Yeah,
eventually they should be transitioning or they're going to be in the business forever, right?
yeah,
Which then doesn't free up time to do things that you really love and are passionate about.
totally.
So I know that was a lot of fun. I wanted to
Yeah,
just ask you,
yeah.
how can some of the audience members get a hold of you, reach out to you, contact you directly?
Yeah. So we're about to go through a rebrand, and I can't give too many details on that. So I would say the best place is either just private message me on Facebook. I'm super active there. Or I have a YouTube channel where I share tons of free training on all of the stuff that we've been talking about. If you just go to youtube.com/Greg Hickman TV, all one word, you'll get to my YouTube channel. Would love a subscription and any sort of comments on the videos. But yeah, that's the best place to catch me, because that won't be changing, and just tons of free content around all of this stuff there.
That's amazing, Greg. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully you
Yeah,
had fun. I definitely learned a lot from
totally.
you, and we'll definitely be in touch. If you're ever in Toronto, give me a ring.
Yeah, likewise in Denver.
Thank you.